Hey guys, welcome back to Mama Smoky Hills Life Skills. I haven't done a talk video in a while, so today there's a lot going on, so I wanted to get into that a little bit. It's definitely not hidden anymore. It's out there for you to see. There's lots of things been going on the last couple of years. So if you're awake, if your eyes are open, you're definitely seeing it. There is also lots more prepping channels on YouTube. So I would encourage you to go over and watch some of them, because all the ones that you can watch to get different information from, it's all the better. I'm not going to encourage you to just stay with me. You know, you need to go watch others. I'll watch them. They're good. You need as much information as you can possibly get. Of course, if you read your Bible and you know anything about the end times, it's all right here in this Bible that we have. Okay, so we know what's going on. The world is not falling apart. It's falling into place. It's going exactly where God intends it to go. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, and a little bit about storing food and just the different things that's going on right now. There's a lot of people, I've talked about this before in other videos, that doesn't believe that you're supposed to store up food and worry about things and stuff, which you're not supposed to fear. You know, we know what's going to happen, and you don't have a fear about where you're going to be, because if you know God, you know where you're going to be. If you don't know God, then you should have a fear of where you're going to be, because you're not going to be in heaven. So first and foremost, the gospel is 1 Corinthians 15, 1 through 4. That's the gospel. You trust that with your heart. Okay, it says believe. But when it's saying believe, it's trusting in Him, trusting in what He did. It's not just a head knowledge. It's a heart knowledge. You need to get it from here to here. Okay? But with all the things that's going on right now, for the last couple of years, it's literally just been one thing after another, guys. I mean, it's never ending. It's something new every single day. They're trying to keep you constantly focusing on something new, something else they throw out there, keeping us all divided. We don't need division. We need to come together, help each other, have love. Those are all the things that they don't want. So with that being said, in here, it's in Revelation chapter 6. I'm going to turn there. It talks about, in verse 6, "And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, a measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny. And see thou hurt not the oil and the wine. And when he had opened the fourth seal, I heard a voice of the fourth beast say, Come and see. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him. And power was given unto them over the fourth part of the earth, to kill with sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beast of the earth. And when he had opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of God, and for the testimony which they held." So if you just read there, Revelation 6, 6 and 7, you know, a measure is a quart. You know, it would be about a quart for us today. So, can you imagine what it would cost for that, for you to have enough food for your little family, however, you know, many there may be in your family, to eat on for a day or maybe 2 days. That's sad, isn't it? I mean, the word tells us what's going to happen, but we also have knowledge and wisdom, and we can be prepared for some, you can be prepared spiritually. If you don't know God, you need to know Him. You want to know that you and your family's going to heaven. But you can also prepare with stocking up on some food and have as much as you can possibly get, guys. When it comes to beans and rice and canned foods and anything that you can stock up on to make, last for months to a year and even longer. I mean, it definitely needs to be even longer than that. Raise a garden. Save your seeds. Learn how to can if you don't know how. I mean, these are all very important things right now. It's going to get really bad, okay? So you need to make sure you have these things. Having medical supplies and all these other things, you need to have that stuff too. But food right now and a water source, that is your number one things after salvation. I mean, look how much inflation has become. I went to the store a couple of weeks ago. It hasn't been just a few weeks ago I went, and 60 eggs was 4 something. I went back 2 weeks later, they were 8 something. I went back a couple of weeks later, they were 13 something. So when I go back again, I don't know what they're going to be. But it's just getting out of hand. I mean, it's going to be, you literally are not going to be able to afford it. You need to be getting, if you see something now and the price of it is that much and you say, I'm not going to get it because, I'll get it later when it goes cheaper. It's probably not going to go cheaper. It's probably going to go higher. So it's either do without completely or get it at that price now. But you definitely need to be stocking on your canned foods, your rice and beans, and learning how to can. And you go ahead and get seeds for next year. Don't just be thinking about right now. Think about next year. You need seeds. You need canning jars. You need canning supplies if you don't have them. Whatever you're going to need next year, you better be thinking about it right now. Because next year, you're probably not going to get it. And then over here in Luke, we were talking about knowing, if it's the end times, He says you're not going to know the day or the hour. But he also says, if you're asleep, you need to spiritually be awake, watching for Him all the time. If you're awake, you will be watching for Him. He can show up any minute. Maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow. We don't know when. But we know that things are happening really fast right now. It's in Luke chapter 12. And when you see a cloud rise out of the west, straightway you say, there comes a shower, and so it is. And when you see the south wind blow, you say, there will be heat, and it comes to pass. You hypocrites, you can discern the face of the sky, of the earth, but how is it that you do not discern this time? Yeah, and why even of yourselves judge ye not what is right? So you can discern that it's going to come a shower, or the heat. But you cannot, I lost my spot there for a second. But you can't discern that it's the end times. He says the closer that it gets to time for Him to come, the faster these things will start happening. Like a woman in labor, the pains will get harder and faster until He shows up. And I believe that we're seeing those. So I'm telling you, if you do not know Him, you need to get knowing Him today. Today is the day of salvation, not tomorrow. Tomorrow's not promised. But He also tells us We know that it is a sin to be lazy. We need to be working as hard as we can work. And I'm not talking about those that are disabled or elderly or just physically cannot. Okay, there's a difference. But if you're able-bodied and you could get up and do it and you're just not, you need to, because your family's life, your life is going to depend on it, because he will help us as long as we help ourselves. You cannot lay on the couch or in the bed and just pray for it and he's just going to make your stuff fall out of the sky. He could do that if he wanted to. Yes, he has the power to do all. But he tells us in his word to do as the ant does. Do not be sluggard. You got to make a move and he will make a move. You cannot just sit there and wait for the corn to pop out of the ground. It's not going to happen. You got to plant the corn and he will make it grow. Okay? So you need to get a garden. You need to get your supplies. It might be hard, but it's going to be a lot worse if you don't get it. Okay? A garden takes a lot of work. You don't just plant it and let it be. You have to work it. You have to do things in it constantly. Getting the weeds out. Picking the stuff when it's ready. But especially if you have kids, you need to know that they're going to have something to eat come 6 months to a year from now. And if you're not growing your food and canning and stocking up, doing something to ensure that, then you can't say that it's going to be there. Because within the next year, there may not be a store to go to. No one's going to do it for you. You have to get up and do it yourself. Another thing is, if you don't have chickens, you might want to think about getting some of them. You don't have to have a bunch, even if you just have 3, 4, 5 hens so that you can get some eggs. You can look into options on, of course, their feed has went up also, which makes it difficult. But you can give them scraps and let them free range as much as possible. Now, where I live here, out in the country, we have lots of wild animals, and I cannot let mine free range. I give them worms and grass and different things as much as I can, and I give them the scraps of stuff. So you can check into that, but you do not have to have a rooster. So that's, if you want a rooster, if that way you can fertilize the eggs to have more chicks later on, if that's an option. But if not, if you just want the eggs, you can just get hens for the eggs and not have the rooster. But looking into all these things is really, really important right now, guys. I know that I say this stuff quite a bit, but I feel that I have to. And these other prepping channels that are doing the same, we need as many people as possible to be doing this stuff. There needs to be a lot of us doing this. If it's just 1 or 2, it's not gonna, we need a lot doing it. You need to build communities within yourself if you can do that. If you know people that are around you that are like-minded, that have the same thoughts that you do, about this type of stuff. You talk to them and you become friends with them and you work together. And if you both have gardens, you share stuff, and, like they used to do in the older days. And we need to also be living like it's the Great Depression, because it's headed back there. History repeats itself. We're going to be headed back into the times like the Great Depression, but it's going to be worse even for us now than it was for them then, because multiple different reasons. There's way more people on the earth now than there was then. People back then knew how to survive and grow their own food. They wasn't so used to air conditioning and internet and all these things. They knew how to do things. They knowed how to hunt and fish and grow their own food and can and just make things go a long way. We are now we have become a very wasteful country. We just throw stuff out like it's nothing and go buy more. We need to stop that. We need not to be so dependent on the internet. We need not to be so dependent on air conditioning. We need not to be so dependent on grocery stores. We need to grow our own groceries. Like I said, have chickens for your eggs. If you have to, you have chicken to eat. You need to be growing multiple different foods, corn, beans, squash, just all kinds of stuff. Potatoes is a big one that can go a long way. If you have beans and taters, you have a meal, okay? Maybe learn how to make your own bread, make your biscuits, just even if you right now don't want to do these things every day, be looking into it. Be doing little things here and there. That way, whenever it does come, it doesn't hit you all at once. Okay? Let's see. I have been, right now, here in the South, it's not really been that hot yet. We've had some days in the 80s. This week, it's supposed to be in the 90s. But normally, when it would be in the 80s even, we would turn our air on. I've not been doing that. We've opened up your windows and doors if you live in a safe enough place to do so, to let air in. If you have the opportunity and the time, sit out under a shade tree, find a shady spot. That's what they used to do back in the older days. They had shade trees. They didn't have air conditioning. It takes some getting used to. See, we've spoiled ourselves to these things, and we need to get farther from these things. Yes, it's going to be hard, but we need to do little things now to where it's not all at once on you. Be canning some food now. Be growing your garden now. Know that you have your seeds and stuff for next year. There's a lot of things. If you don't know how to sew, learn how to, just sew a button on, sew a patch on, sew up a hole. Of course, a sewing machine is great too, but you may not have the option to use a sewing machine, may not have a sewing machine, or if you lost electricity. But knowing how to work one, that's a good thing too. There's lots of different things you need to know how to do to make yourself valuable in other ways, so that you can help yourself, your family, others that may not know how to do anything. You need to be able to help others as you go. Don't be, like I said, so dependent on the internet. You can get books off of Amazon. What if we lost the internet and then you needed to know how to do something, whether it was recipes or how to can or how to make shelter or edible plants in the woods and all these things. You need to get those books now, or sit down and write down stuff off the internet now on your free time, instead of always thinking that you're going to have that internet there, because you may not always have that internet. You need to have a backup. Having people's phone numbers and addresses and names and stuff like that wrote down off the internet. You always have everything right in your phone. You might need to put all that information into a book instead of just having everything always electronical. But that was my main purpose today, guys. I've just been thinking about all that stuff. There's just so many things right now to think about and talk about, so much that I can't even remember it all at once. I know that you just need to be getting food. I know that you need to be growing a garden. I know that you need to be stocking up other supplies as you go too. Of course, the main thing we talk about is food, but there's always other supplies, first aid, like soap and shampoo and those kind of things, toiletries, whatever. There's all that stuff you should always be keeping a head on, because the prices, and you never know what could happen, that the stores could shut down, or anything could happen that we couldn't get there. Gas prices are going through the roof. Where I'm at, they went from $3.99 to $4.29 overnight, not before last. So it's everything hitting all at once, okay? And it's to break us little people, okay? So that's why we need to be smart. We need to work hard. We need to stay busy every single day doing something beneficial for our families. Think about our kids. Get that stuff stocked up. And whenever you think you have a lot stocked up, keep stocking it anyway, okay? You always need more. And in the long run, if everything goes back to being like it was, you know, prices go down, this was just a little spurt that happened and all that kind of stuff, then you can always share your food with someone else or do something with it. But I really don't see that happening. Not sure about you, but I see it going the other direction. Why? Because my Bible tells me so. Okay? We know what's happening. But also, whenever I was talking about how wasteful that we have become as a nation, you need to, there's so many things that we cook that we throw out and we don't want to eat again, eat the leftovers. We shouldn't be doing that. Everything that we make, anything that's left over, we can put it in a bowl in the fridge, eat it the next day, and if we don't necessarily want it the next day, put it in bows and put it in the freezer. Write what it is on top of it with a Sharpie, write the date on it, put it in the freezer, then whenever you get for the mood for that again, pull it out and heat it up. We need to quit throwing away so much food, guys. And if we don't want it at all to even put in the freezer, you may not have space or whatever the reason, you just don't want it, share it with your neighbor. Whenever you're done and you got all that left over, fix them a plate and take it over. Your grandma or something. So that's what I wanted to talk to y'all about, okay? Really be thinking about this stuff, guys. It's very important. It's serious. If you're not seeing things, I don't know how, really, because, I mean, it's so out there, and it's been just one thing after another. You just really need to be looking at what's going on, not be watching local news, because you're not going to get your information there. You're going to get your information, real life people living those issues, on YouTube. Okay? So, once again, the gospel is 1 Corinthians 15, 1 through 4. How Jesus died for your sins, was buried, rose again the third day. You believe that with all your heart. You trust in that with your heart, so that you know you're going to heaven, because that's where it's at. Nowhere else. He's the way, the truth, the life. No one comes to the Father but by Him. All this food and everything else we're storing up, whatever, having gardens, all of that's great. It's good to do. But if you ain't going to heaven, none of it matters. Okay? You put your treasure there. Where your treasure is where your heart is. Okay? And I will see you in the next one.